Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. In today's video, we're going to be continuing Dragon Ball World's Strongest. What if Wonder Woman was in Dragon Ball? Part 9. As always, if you're new to the channel or if you're a regular and you like what we have to offer, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcastings that has to come out now and in the future. As we go into part 9, we now enter into the Namek saga of this portion of a Dragon Ball What If. Now, I do want to clarify that after we complete the Namek portion, this story is going to be coming to an end temporarily. The reason being is that I've noticed that when I've been doing these stories in terms of the various phases, if you will, I tend to burn through a lot of the content if I do it all at once. That's the reason why going forward with the anime Marvel series and with this series as well, I'm not going to be doing everything in every phase all at once. Because if I'm being honest, looking back on it when we did the first phase, if I could do things over again, then I wouldn't have burnt through all of the content for every season that I would have had. From what if Naruto was trained by Dr. Strange to what if Issei was the Ghost Rider. I definitely would have broke it up and done the seasons at different quarters of time instead of doing them all at once. So with this, after we complete the Namek / Frieza saga, then the story is going to be brought to an end with the portion of DC Anime Phase 1. But anyway, as we go into today's story, we continue the journey for the Dragon Balls as our heroes begin to arrive on Namek and the various factions race to try to get the Dragon Balls and try to one-up one another in the ultimate goal for power. How will our heroes be able to overcome the various trials that are seemingly piling up against them, as they now come face to face with the next big bad of the saga in Frieza? For all this and more, stay tuned as we now continue. Dragon Ball World's Strongest. What if Wonder Woman was in Dragon Ball? Part 9. Our story continues as we enter into the Namek saga. The team of Bulma, Chichi, and Krillin, using the spaceship taken by Kami when he arrived to Earth, would make their way and arrive to Namek. If you're wondering why Chichi is here, the main reason is that during the fight with the Saiyans, only Chaozu, Piccolo, and Raditz lost their lives. While Tien, Yamcha, Krillin, and Chichi had all survived, along with Goku and Diana, it was only fit for the two healthiest of the fighters to go in the first ship to Namek, and with Krillin and Chichi, they were the most ready to go. Yamcha wasn't too thrilled about this, but still, he figured the best thing he could do was recover and make sure that everything was safe on Earth until they got back. Goku and Diana would still be recovering, and it would be some time before Senzu beans were made, but once they were ready to go, then the team of Goku, Diana, and Gohan would make their way to Namek in the second ship that was made especially for them. But in the meantime, our story would be focused on Krillin, Chichi, and Bulma. Krillin was going because he was one of the healthiest fighters left, and also it was his idea to search for Namek in the first place, after hearing about it from Vegeta and Nappa when they arrived on Earth and referred to Piccolo as a Namekian. For Chichi, there was one thing that was on her mind. She remembered Raditz, remembering how he sacrificed his life in order to save her, doing something that even he never thought that he could do. It had been during their training before the Saiyans' arrival that the two had gotten a bit close. There wasn't anything romantic right off the bat, there was no time for such things, but even still, Chichi still felt a great sense of longing for him. The more she thought about him, the less she found herself thinking about Goku, the person who had been the catalyst for her to get as strong as she had. The only reason she acquired her cheetah powers after visiting the fortune teller Baba was just so she could get revenge against Diana, believing that she was the homewrecker that pretty much stole Goku from her all those years ago. However, the more she thought about it, the more she realized that she and Goku didn't have all that much in common. Although Chichi, now that she had taken a different path in life, was more on the side of being a fighter than anything else, in the end, that was pretty much all they had in common. And even then, Chichi didn't want to be a fighter forever. She eventually wanted to settle down and have a family of her own. But when she saw Goku with Diana and with their child Gohan, they just seemed happier. They were a family that trained together, that lived out in nature and did things their own way. She didn't mind it, but at the same time, she knew that there were other things that she would want for herself. Ultimately, as time had gone by, even though she had never really admitted it to herself, she didn't really like Goku the way that she thought she did. In the end, what was their promise anyway? All Goku did was tap her in her not-so-private area because he had no common sense back then. He didn't know anything in terms of how to treat a girl or boundaries. It was amazing that he had even matured as much as he had from the time that they had first met. He didn't even know what marriage was until Diana explained it to him. And for better or worse, Goku made a much more responsible decision, not giving into marriage simply because it was something he said. In the end, he probably spared them from having a rather dysfunctional home. And little did she know, he had done that in a lot of ways. But now she had someone else. Of course, she knew that it might not look all that well, going from one brother to another, but even still, that stigma didn't really carry much weight for her anymore. Right now, the only thing she wanted was to do anything in her power to bring Raditz back to life. And if this was her chance of doing so, then that's what she planned to do. As they landed on Namek, Krillin, Bulma, and Chichi would slowly observe their surroundings. They were able to store away the ship inside of a cave that would keep them hidden well enough. As Bulma was searching for the dragon radar, both Krillin and Chichi would sense a massive collection of power levels. Everyone would hide inside of the cave, making sure they weren't seen, as the cluster of beings flew past them. One with a power level in particular that really caught them off guard. It was a power that was immense, enormous, greater than anything that they had ever experienced in their life. Definitely greater than the Saiyans. And even more so, as Krillin feared, he didn't think that that was all that that one in particular had to hide. There was definitely more. Chichi would say, I think that might be Frieza. Frieza? Krillin would say, yeah. When Raditz was training with us, he told us a bit about a person named Frieza. A person that he and Vegeta and even that other Saiyan that they had been working for this whole time. The real leader behind all of this. Their leader. You think that could be him? He's said to be the strongest out of everyone within this organization. And with a power level like that, I don't doubt it. We couldn't do anything against him. Krillin then came to another horrid realization. Bulma, check the dragon radar. Bulma checked it. The group that had flown by had 4 Dragon Balls already, and they were making their way to another place where there was yet another Dragon Ball. That was going to make 5 right then and there. Krillin was now angered. Just when they thought that they were finally going to have a chance, now they had to compete with all of this, and until Goku and Diana arrived, they were just going to have to hold their own. In the meantime, as if things were only getting from bad to worse, not too far off, there was another familiar power level that could be sensed as well. It was Vegeta. Now he was here too? For now, they couldn't just wait around and do nothing. Chichi and Krillin would go and follow behind where the grouping of Dragon Balls were, trying to see what they could do. The two keeping their power levels suppressed, as that group were wearing those devices, scouters that could detect power levels. Both Chichi and Krillin would hide and watch from a distance, as Frieza, flanked by his two subordinates, Dodoria as well as Zarbon, would begin their descent upon the 5th Namekian village, attacking and killing their warriors in an attempt to get their hands on the Dragon Ball. They had managed to do so, but at a great loss of life. However, the Namekians were a warrior race that, while peaceable, were not ones that would go down so easily. The elder of the Namekians taking a chance to even the odds, destroying all of the scouters of Frieza and his men. Well, I must say, you Namekians can be quite irritating, but even still, you can't say much for foolishness, now can you? Not at all, Lord Frieza. Just weaklings trying to go down with the ship. You already have what you want. Here, take the Dragon Ball. It means nothing now. Thankfully, for the Namekians, they knew that unless you spoke the language, you couldn't actually use the Dragon Ball for anything in particular. Though still, even with that knowledge, the situation for them was still dire. The elder Namekian would ask if he could give his life, if only to allow the young ones a chance to escape. Frieza would at first give to this request, as the two children attempted to run away. However, Frieza would then point his finger and destroy one of them with a death beam. He wasn't going to make it easy for them. Now that would be absurd. Both Chichi and Krillin would be angered at this senseless display of violence, as the elder Namekian was then killed, only leaving the young one to remain. However, before he could be harmed, Chichi, believing that she had seen enough, would go bursting out of nowhere, kicking Dodoria right in the face, before grabbing the young one and telling Krillin that they needed to book it. Chichi running on the ground, as she preferred that to flying. She was able to run so fast that she could even run over water. As Chichi began to run off, Frieza would be surprised. Everyone would be. Not just by the bald-headed fellow in orange, but by that female. It was by the way she was dressed. You see, Chi-Chi's attire is one that you could say was very familiar. When trying to find some fighting armor or clothing that she would want to use, she took inspiration from Radix and his armor. Now, Radix wanting to help in any way that he could, he would give some schematics for Bulma to reverse engineer the armor that he wore, and Chi-Chi would wear that. In the way that she was dressed though, she wore armor and clothing that was very similar to a certain Saiyan. A Saiyan that Frieza killed a long time ago. A one by the name of Bardock. That girl. She seems to be dressed in our armor, although it's the more primitive kind. Yes, like the kind worn by the Saiyans. Do you suppose she is one? I don't think so, Zarbon. I was able to look at her tail. It was of a yellow variety with black spots, nothing like that filthy brown that those Saiyan monkeys use. Though still, she might be a hybrid of some other kind of various race. Though it does no matter to me. I do want them to be brought back at once. Dodoria, I trust that you can handle it. No problem, Lord Frieza. I'll take those 2 Dragon Balls in the meantime. Now hop to it. Dodoria would quickly chase after the 2, Chi-Chi holding the young Namekian in her arms while she ran, and Krillin flying up ahead, and Dodoria chasing close behind them. Knowing that they had to find some way to escape, Krillin would buy them some time as he used the solar flare, blinding Dodoria as they now had a chance to escape. And as their power levels had spiked, it caught the attention of a certain prince. Vegeta would still go on to fight with Dodoria, killing him even after learning the truth of the tragedy of the Saiyan homeworld of planet Vegeta, and learning that it had actually been destroyed by Lord Frieza himself. In the end, that information meant nothing to Vegeta, even though deep down he had always suspected that there was some other truth as to how his homeworld was destroyed. Even still though, now Vegeta was starting to make moves of his own. Not only had he managed to defeat Qui, but he had also managed to get his hand on the Scouter. And after learning from Dodoria that all the other Scouters had been destroyed, he felt as though he had an advantage. Though even still, he wanted to see if he could pick up on that technique. The technique that those Earthlings seemed to be able to use to hide and raise their power levels, and even sense them as well. If he could learn how to do that, then he'd definitely have one up on the Prince. Though for now, the Scouter would be most effective for finding a Namekian village, as he figured the best thing he could do was to try to throw a wrench into Frieza's plans, as Vegeta would go about in a conquest of his own. Both Chichi and Krillin would take the young Namekian back to their base. After gaining his trust, the young one would reveal himself to be Dende, and while he did thank them for their help, in the end, he knew that their planet was still in great peril, as these conquering forces had been coming to try to gather the Dragon Balls. Dende also was curious as to how these strange beings also knew of the Dragon Balls, although he was a bit untrusting of Chichi, as she was sporting similar garb to the ones that had attacked his own village. Chichi explained that it was just an armor style, and that she wasn't with them. They explained that they came from Earth, where there was a Namekian by the name of Piccolo, and another one by the name of Kami. They had apparently made Dragon Balls, and their origin was from here, although they had lost them, and they were hoping to use the Namekian Dragon Balls to try to bring those who they lost back to life. After learning of their situation and understanding that they were on his side, Dende felt as though he could trust them. In learning that there were more reinforcements that were going to be coming along that could potentially help, in the end, he felt as though maybe they might have a fighting chance after all. But if there was anyone who could help them, then it would definitely be the Elder, the one known as Guru. If anyone would know what was going on Namek, it would be the Grand Elder himself. Although who was going to go and meet him, no one was entirely sure. Although Chichi decided that she should go. After all, she was faster than Krillin even when he was flying. And since they would be on ground, she could move from between the rocks and could hide better. Strapping Dende onto her back, she and Dende would then race towards the meeting place for the Grand Elder of the Namekians. But what was happening back on Earth? Well, Goku and Diana were still recovering in the hospital, although before long, it would eventually be time as the Senzu beans had finally grown. Yajirobe would make his way to where the two were, giving each of them a bean. Instantly, their wounds would be completely healed, and the two fighters could feel their powers surging. Now knowing that they were ready to go, the Sun family would make a quick trip back home, packing whatever they needed for their trip to Namek. It wouldn't be too long, and in the meantime, Hippolyta would wish them a safe journey. As they were preparing to set off, they were told that their trip would be around 6 to 7 days, and the ship that they were going in had a special gravity room built just for them, a way for them to train and really push things up to max. Goku and Diana would be thankful, as Gohan was also excited, knowing now that he would actually get a chance to be able to train along with his parents once more. Although, they knew that this wasn't going to be an easy trip for them, as even while they had been recovering, they had gotten message back from Bulma and the others on Namek. They were informed of Frieza and his minions, as well as the return of Vegeta. While they were hoping to have some peaceful family bonding time, now they were going to have to train and get serious and kick things up a notch. Back on Namek, Chichi, running at top speed, would eventually make it to the resting place of the Grand Elder. As she and Dende would arrive, they would be greeted by his attendant Nail. However, once Nail conferred with Dende that Chichi was indeed trustworthy, she would be allowed inside. As the two walked in, they would see the large older Namekian, sitting on what appeared to be a throne of sorts, and above his head, the one-star Dragon Ball. In the meantime, it seemed as though the race for the Dragon Balls was continuing. Vegeta had managed to hide away one of them. However, his journey had led him into another issue, as he had come face to face with Zarbon. Just as in the original, this fight would not go in his favor, as Vegeta would unfortunately be defeated by the monstrous Zarbon himself, being captured and brought back to Frieza's ship. In the meanwhile, Guru would learn of the plight of the Earthlings, and for why they had come to planet Namek in the first place. Knowing though that they were still going to give everything they had, not only in terms of fighting for their own dreams, but to also fight for the Namekian people, and that they even promised that they could use their Earth Dragon Balls to bring back the multitude of Namekians that had died in the first place. This gave the elder Namekian a comforting feeling, and he wanted to help them in any way that he could. For starters, he wanted to help by drawing out their full potential. This would first be with Dende and Chichi, as the elder would place his hands upon their heads and would reach in and pull out their latent potential and power. For Dende, even though he was a non-combatant, his latent abilities had been drawn out to the point where he actually had the ability to heal others. And as for Chichi, she would feel a major boost in her power. Almost immediately, she went from a base power of around 3,600 to taking a massive increase. Keep in mind, in the original, Krillin's power level saw a major increase when his potential was unleashed, going from around 12,000 to around 75,000. This version of Chichi is one that continued on in her training, and also gained a mystic power-up of her own, that being in her cheetah form, as Chichi is pretty much the stand-in for the character of Cheetah from the Wonder Woman mythos from DC Comics in this universe. Because of this, Chi-Chi's power level would increase staggeringly, going from its original power at around 15,000 to boosting her up to a point where at her base level in human form, she was at a good even 90,000 in terms of power. However, when she entered into her cheetah form, she would see an increase where she would go to around 1,400,000. This major boost in power would push Chi-Chi astronomically in terms of her feats and in her abilities. Now being able to move much faster, she knew that if anyone could benefit from something like this, it would definitely be Krillin. Now taking Dende back on her back and being gifted the one-star Dragon Ball to keep it safe, Chi-Chi would race off towards Krillin's location, hoping to get him in on the good news and hopefully to give them a fighting chance. At this level of power, she might even be able to take on Vegeta. In the meantime though, there were other movements at work, not just in this world, but in the world beyond. While Piccolo had decided to journey through Snake Way in order to train under King Kai, Radix was taken somewhere else, because there were two spirits that wanted to meet him. These were both his father and mother, Gine and Bardock. Because of Radix's change of nature, and because of his selflessness in defending Earth against the Saiyans, Radix wouldn't be sent to the home of infinite losers, but instead he would be given a chance to move on to the afterlife. But Kami had intervened, taking him somewhere different. A meadow, if you will. A place where spirits can convene with one another while still having their human bodies. And as a result, Radix would have a chance to meet his parents once more. He would tell them of everything that happened, the good and even the bad. But for the most part, his parents were proud of him. Sure, he had made mistakes along the way, but ultimately he had done what they had hoped he would. He had managed to reunite with his brother, and he had even managed to help in defending him. And there was now the prospect that he could come back to life. Of course, Radix would hope that if it could be done for him, then it could be done for them as well. While both Bardock and Gine would want this more than anything, they wondered if it was right for them to do so. Sure, neither one of them died from natural causes, but even still, they thought that maybe they might be too far gone. No, I won't believe that. Mother, father, I promise, if there is a way for me to bring you back, I will do so. It's alright, son. Even if we don't get a chance to return, I'm sure that you and your brother will do just fine. But while you are here, there is something I do want to teach you. I wish that Kakarot could be here. It's a technique I want to pass down to you both. But I'll give it to you for now. And hopefully Kakarot can pick it up, or maybe something else along the way. Wait, do you mean... That's right. I'm gonna teach you how to use the Riot Javelin. As Radix and Piccolo would continue their training in Otherworld, both Goku and Diana, along with Gohan, would begin their training as they made their way to Namek. As all forces were starting to converge, the race for the Dragon Balls had begun to intensify. This concludes What If Wonder Woman Was in Dragon Ball? Dragon Ball World's Strongest, Part 9. As always, if you enjoyed today's video and everything else that we have to offer, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date for everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcastings that is to come out now and in the future. Stay tuned for tomorrow's video as we continue Neon Genesis Evangelion Redemption. What if Shinji Went Back in Time? Book 1, Part 9. But anyway, that's going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm Javon Harrington with PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. Signing off, and I'll see you next time.